Akuma no Mi Awakenings, one of the cool and most interesting aspects in all of One Piece, is something hinted since the beginning of the story, and just recently, after 20 years of One Piece, we are starting to see more of it. So what is an awakening? For you that don't know, awakening of Akuma no Mi happens when the user mind and body is strong enough to catch up to the Devil Fruit powers, hitting as something way bigger, but I'm gonna let this for later. Now I want to talk about a mystery that I thought was solved a long time ago. Some years ago, when I started watching One Piece and reached Fisherman Island, there was this scene when Jinbei explains Luffy about the Akainu and Aokiji fight, and one particular phrase was the sole responsible of a misunderstanding that to this day people still think is true. That being about Logia awakenings. Jinbei in this particular scene talk about how for 10 days two admirals fought one another in a remote island. That fight was so vicious that the entire climate of the island was permanently changed, being half snow and half burning all the time. But at the time, the concept of awakenings was still very mysterious. The only clues we had for that mystery was the awakened Zoan's users of Imperial Dawn, and Oda didn't explain basically nothing. But we knowing that devil fruits could awaken was enough to people all over the community to theorize about every single fruit that Oda showed us. But something I never saw people discuss that much was the awakening of Logia fruits, and that's solely because of Doflamingo awaken and the Akainu and Aokiji fight. Since Logia users embody the force of nature themselves, literally becoming an element like fire, ice, lightning, magma, and many others, the community unconsciously basically agreed that what happened to Punk Hazard was in fact the awakening of Logias, the ability to permanently change the landscape to wherever your element may be. We saw what Doflamingo Ito Itonomi could do, transform everything around him into strings that he could manipulate, and I'm not gonna lie, it would be very logical that the awakened Logias could do that too. It makes total sense. Imagine someone like Akainu or Enel with the power to change everything around them into their elements. It appears to be the natural direction of Logias, so much that I myself believe that to be the case. But when I was reading about awakened fruits in the One Piece wiki, I noticed something. The Logia awakened parts didn't exist. At first I thought this was a mistake, that they somehow forget to put that in the site, but after a quick research I discovered that no, the manga or Oda never even mentioned something about a Logia awakening, and in that moment my jaw dropped, because that information was with me for more than a decade. I even felt pretty dumb, not gonna lie. And at the same time, I discovered some theories about Logia awakens could be, but in this video I'm gonna talk about what information is true and at the same time dive deeper into this rabbit hole of awakenings, discussing theories and giving my 2 cents on the matter. So how an awakened Logia would look like? To start, I'm gonna talk about what I think based on the manga and other writing a Logia awaken should not be. To begin, the climate change theory. I think that's the most obvious one, but the most inaccurate one also, for 2 reasons. First, Oda don't like to make things obvious, and if you follow One Piece for a long time, you know how Oda love to make things unique and fun. That's the whole reason why Luffy has rubber powers. Oda himself said he picked the most ridiculous ability because he loves to fool around with his story and characters, so I can't imagine Oda being so uninspired and obvious like that. I believe what happened in Punk Hazard was purely Aokiji and Akainu fighting with all their strength. It was a 10-day fight between 2 forces of nature. Of course the island would be permanently changed. And the second reason is Logias would be way too strong to One Piece. One thing that I always love about One Piece is how contained the powers are. People very rarely has the ability to destroy a city or something above that. It's not by coincidence that our beloved Shirohige has the title of the world's strongest man. With his physical strength, together with his Gura Gura no Mi, made him the most devastating pirate ever saw. He could flip the ocean and destroy islands, and that showed to be the absolute pinnacle of strength of One Piece, and I hope it continues this way. Now imagine someone in the One Piece world that is 9% islands with the power to permanently change the environment. This would literally break the power balance of the story. How did you even fight someone with that ability? Imagine fighting Kizaru and he turns everything around you into light. Or Blackbeard, doing the same thing with the Yami Yami no Mi. Akainu, Aokiji, Enel, Crocodile, they would literally be impossible to even fight. You must remember that Logias could also manipulate and navigate their element. Luffy could have Gear 10, he would not be able to even hit an awakened Crocodile. Now for the second theory, one I think has more credit and has the most potential to be real, but knowing how Oda writes, I don't think it will be this either, the life creation theory. I saw this theory on this YouTube video and I thought it was very good, but has one major issue. To begin explaining the theory, Arthur of the Library of Ohara explained in this video that the true awakening of a Logia is the ability to create or replicate life, using your element to make creatures or clones that can behave on their own, but possesses your will guiding and controlling them. And in this video he makes some pretty good points, showing examples on how a lot of Logia users has animal attacks, like Enel, Akainu and Aokiji, or even at some point the revolutionary Karasu being able to talk throughout havens made by his Susu no Mi. I recommend you see the whole video, it's very good. But like I mentioned before, the major issue with the theory is that every time someone awakens or an awakened user appears, it is explicitly stated that the fruit is awakened every single time. Oda go out of his way to tell us that. So why Oda would never even mention about a Logia awakened even after the amount of times a Logia was on the screen? Let me tell you why, because we don't have a Logia awakened yet. When I watched Ohara's video, for me made total sense. It would be the next step on Logias, be able to create life from the element. It would truly give Logias the rightful place of being the most powerful Akuma no Mis. But again, it's Oda we're talking about here. He absolutely hates making things boring and obvious. And since the only confirmed fruits to have an awakened are Paramecias and Zoan types, I personally don't think Oda would years later say, yeah guys, these all the time were the awakened Logias. I just didn't want to tell you until now. But I'm not gonna lie to you, I can see this totally happening. I cannot deny the Haki and advanced Haki, something very important that changed the whole world that Oda introduced us much later in the story, like as if it had always been there. So I don't doubt that Logia awakens could be permanent environment changes or making life. I just think if this was truly the case, Oda has had many chances to reveal it and he didn't. I think Logia users being able to make all this crazy stuff are just proof on how powerful these fruits truly are. People with high control over their Akuma no Mi abilities can fully control their element, manipulating them on how they see fit. If Mr. 3 could be extremely versatile with his wax fruit, just imagine what Aokiji, being so powerful as he is, could do with his Hie Hie no Mi. And before I give my final thoughts on the matter, I have to talk about the last theory that simply says that Logias cannot awaken. Yeah, simple as that. I saw a lot of arguments toward this line of thought, but I'm not gonna focus on them because every single one of them are easily refuted. Now to finalize this video, I'm gonna give my 2 cents on the matter. I don't wanna be the guy who just contradicts other opinions and don't give nothing in return. So what I think is the awakening of a Logia. Logias are the embodiment of nature itself. Magma, ice, fire, light, forest. So a Logia user awakened would be able to become one with their element, gaining completely control over it for a time, like becoming a lightning storm, a volcano or a sandstorm, bringing devastation where they pass. Imagine fighting an awakened Suna no Mi, and instead of a guy, you got this giant tornado of sand ripping and tearing everything around you. That's how I imagine a Logia awakening, not changing the landscape, not creating something, but becoming nature itself. And you must be questioning me right now, saying, that's too powerful, and one of your arguments before was that Logias could not change the environment because that would be too broken. And you were kinda right, but in my case I argument that no, this will not be too broken, because what would make my idea of awakening significantly weak is the fact that if someone would become one with nature, like in Crocodile in this case here, and temporarily transform into a walking disaster, they will lose their sense of self. for the duration of the awakening. Sure, Crocoboy could be invincible in this form, but cannot think, meaning he cannot aim or choose what he will do next. He would be literally just a storm, wreaking havoc without purpose. And I'm not gonna lie, that would be pretty lame, just becoming more of your element, but bigger and stronger. But I also have to say that almost every Logia is pretty lame. For more that I love how Oda has presented us with one of the most interesting and funny powers in our fiction, I cannot defend how lame he make Logias be. Different from Paramecia and Zoans, Logias always feel pretty basic. People just become their element and start doing element stuff. Crocodile to this day, more than 20 years later, is still the best and most smart Logia user in all of One Piece, doing way more than just controlling sand. He can drive people, create blades, create tornadoes. It's no coincidence that he's the person who almost ended Luffy's journey 2 times and just lost because of his own hubris. On second thought, I think Mr. Zero here is the entire reason why Logias are so underused and tamed. If Crocodile could do all of that, imagine what the others could do. If Crocoboy can remove all the water from your body, Aokiji could probably froze all the water in your body and kill you instantly. But that's it for today. I hope you guys liked the video. This was my first One Piece video of many I'm planning to do. So if you wanna stay to see me getting crazy over theories about One Piece and gachas, subscribe. Truly thank you if you have made this far. Leave a like if you like this video and see you next time.